is Outpost on the open or semi-open file. I believe you can see my screen. And the first chess player who gave the explanation to an outpost was Aaron Nimzovich. This is how he explained. So look at this position, and here he suggested to play knight d5. And then he told that this knight works like an outpost. I can just read what he exactly said about it. Okay, so we play knight d5, and the knight placed here we call the outpost. By this we mean a piece, usually a knight, but it's not always the knight, only usually it's a knight, established on an open file in the enemy territory. And of course, protected by a pawn. It can be an open file or semi-open file like in this position. So I just want to remind you that the file is open if there are no pawns on that file. And the file is semi-open when there is only one pawn. For example, in this position, these two files are semi-open and there are no open files. Okay. What else can we say about this knight and this outpost, at least for this exact position? First, this outpost forms a base for new attacks. What does it mean? For example, here, let's say black plays this move, and then we may play rook d4, rook a4. So it allows us to start the attack on the queen side with our rook taking the enemy pawns. Another thing, this outpost provokes a weakening of the enemy's position. So here, for example, he plays c6, we just retreat to c3, and then our plan is to attack the weakness on d6. Okay, I don't really want to give much explanation because, as I believe in chess, you should learn by examples, by practice. That's why I'm going to give two more examples where I explain what outpost means. And after that, I will ask you about in which positions, which piece should be the best outpost. Okay, so I'm closing it. And now I'm going to show another example. That was just an explanation. Okay, this is the position we are going to discuss. I hope everyone can see it. What do you think in general about this position? It looks like here white has extra pawn, but the problem is that it's not easy to find a way how to exploit this advantage because this is a double pawns. How to play in this position? Well, maybe you would consider knight g6. But knight g6, rook h7, and then you realize that the knight here on the g file that is quite far from the center doesn't really do much. It attacks the e7, f8, and the h8 squares, and nothing else. That's why in this position, we can also try rook g2. Rook g2 is a mistake. After this move, black trades on g2, then he can play rook g8, and now he occupies the g file. That's why the best move is rook g6. We locate our rook on this square, and now this rook works like an outpost. Then how to play? If he takes, oh, this move we'll discuss a little bit later. If, for example, king e7, we can just play this move. And now we ask him to take on g6, but he may play king f7. But after that, we play knight f3, knight h2, knight g4, attacking the h6 or f6 pawn, and he has no other option but to take on g6 finally. And after this trade, we actually get a similar position. So here we take with the h pawn to undouble our pawns, and at the same time to create a distant, a protected passed pawn. Rook g8, rook g1. This is a winning position. Here, white can do everything he wants. Maybe first knight f3 should be played. Maybe to open the position in the center, then try to get rid of the f6 pawn and advance our f pawn. Another option is just to come to h5 with our king, for example. And actually, after knight f3 move, we are threatening this, rook g4, rook h4. So after knight f3, he has to play h5, and then his pawn on h5 becomes weaker. We can attack it with our king. Okay, so this is a winning position, and one more example that is a little bit harder. Okay, I can also enable microphone for Milan. But unfortunately, I can't do it for Michael. I don't know. It's because of the software, I believe. Okay, guys, everyone can talk. If you have any questions, you can say it by voice. You can type it in the chat, anything. Okay, fine. This is another example I want you to look at. And what do you think? How to play in this position? Here, the D file is open, uh, as well as the H file. But the question is where to create an outpost and how. By the way, this example is taken from the game between Aaron Nimzovich against Amator. This is what he shows in his book. The position is materially equal, but white is winning because white has a clearer plan. He plays knight f4, then rook h8 was played in the game, and then rook h7. What's the idea? If he takes, then we have a passed pawn. This is what actually happened in the game. I'll show you a little bit later. So he played bishop e8, and after a rook d to h1, he has to take on h7. And this is where we transform the advantage of having an outpost to a distant passed pawn. We take on h7 with our pawn and taking this rook. Another option, another winning plan, no, not so good as g takes on h7, but another possible plan was to take with rook. Then, for example, king f8, knight h5, and white wants to sacrifice on f6 and then take all the pawns on the queen side. We can also bring the king to f4. And this line works as well. It will be a winning position because of too many pawns, and these f5 and g6 pawn are located quite close to queen squares. That's why they can compensate a piece. Okay, so rook h7 was a possible move, but not the best one. G takes on h7, creating a distant passed pawn. Rook h8. And then knight g6. Now we have protected passed pawn and just one square left to promote it. King e6, and in this position we should play a rook h5, preventing the king and the pawn to move to the fifth rank. This is how we prevent all his activity, because this rook is now inactive. If it moves, then we promote and he loses his rook. b6, c4, with the idea to stop any activity on the queen side. c5, a4, a5, b3, c6, and then no moves for black in this position. He has only the king, but after king f4, he has to go to d6, and after king f5, he is in a zugzwang and has to go to the seventh rank. And then, of course, we make a breakout with e5. He takes, king takes, and in this position, just rook f5 wins. Rook f7, there is no defense. He can't use the rook. Well, he may play with his rook, but it should be located on the back rank. And after we take on g7, the game is over. Okay, this is how we could transform the advantage of having an outpost and win the game. Now, I want to ask you a question. What do you think? On which files it's better to have the knight as an outpost, and on which files the rook works better as an outpost? Okay, while you're answering, I'm just going to open the game that we are going to explore today. So is the question clear? Just tell me on which files the rook is better like an outpost, and where it's better to have the knight. Okay, let me answer this question myself. So when it comes, no, when it's on the A and B, as well as H and G, it's better to have rook. Rook works better like outpost. Why? Because knight usually has nothing to do there. It's better to locate the knight on central files, not like this. D, wait, here. C, D, E, and F files. Because the knight, for example, standing on F4 has so many squares to attack, but the knight standing somewhere on B3 has not so many squares, only just maybe 3-4 active squares to attack. Okay, we are going to analyze the fragment from the game between Evgeny Vasikov and Ratmir Holmov. What do you think? It's actually black to move in this position. What can you say about the position in general? And of course, the key question, can we create an outpost? And if yes, how? Okay, Michael suggests to play b4 and then d4 can become the outpost. Probably yes, but actually in this position we already have the square on the d file that is protected by our pawn. It's d3. So d3 can be already an outpost. That's why we play knight d7 to get our knight there. g3. Now he stops some knight f4 activity, knight c5, and then in this position, if he played g3, he should continue with h4, h5, threaten our knight, then get more space. But unfortunately for black, he decided to play queen move, queen h5, and then of course knight d3 was played. If he takes, then we can take with rook or with the pawn. Depends on what you want in this position. Depends on your plan. So here this knight works like outpost. And if bishop takes, I actually think I would take with the pawn because then I can convert the advantage of having an outpost to a distant passed pawn that is quite close to the queen square. If, for example, we push the pawn forward, we can win a piece. Currently, the rook is hanging. Rook d1, rook e2 was played in the game, but what if rook d1? How would you play in this position? Well, actually, we can ignore this move and make something, any move that we think is useful, like bishop b7 maybe. Another move that can be playable in this position is queen c6, attacking on e4. Queen c5. So, Michael, what's the idea of queen c5? After you play this move, then bishop e3 can be played with a tempo. And then you have to play queen c6 back. But I don't think that bishop e3 was in your favor. No, just queen c6 to attack on e4. And then if bishop d3, pawn takes on d3, now this pawn on e4 is hanging, he has to do something. For example, queen f3 to protect the pawn. How would you play in this position now? I mean, how to continue? Oh, maybe I don't give you enough time to think, but if you have any suggestions what black can do, then you can type it in the chat. Or say it by voice. Okay, so here f5 can be played. f5, what's the idea? Of course, to take on e4. He takes, and then instead of trading the queens, we play e4 with a temper. He has to get his queen somewhere. Queen e3 probably. Then we take on f5, and we have two strong pawns, and we can promote them soon. Maybe you can ask me, what if something like this? How to win a pawn on f5 back? It's just 97 move. Then bishop takes, and it's fine. Almost the same position. Moreover, we really want to get our knight to d5, where it attacks these two squares. Okay, let's go back. So if rook d1, then we play queen c6. In the game, it was rook e2. Still queen c6. Knight f1 was played. Now this pawn on e4 is protected. That's why I want you to think again and suggest a plan in this position for black. Well, there are at least two plans that work for black. So what black can do to be able to improve his position? Okay, if there are no suggestions, then of course rook f8 with the idea to play f5. Then maybe open this diagonal and play bishop b7. This is one of the ideas. However, in the game, instead of rook f8, it was played rook d6. Maybe with the idea to double the rooks on the d file. Also, another idea of this move you'll see a little bit later. Bishop d3. And now what to take with, of course, with the pawn, because this is how we convert this outpost to a protected, to a distant passed pawn. Rook e1. And now please tell me what would you do in this position? What's the idea of rook d6 move and what black can do to get some material advantage here? Okay. To be able to, well, so here what's the idea? We can't push d2 because he has two attackers. We have only rook. If we want to do this, then we should double on the d file. Rook e d8 or f5. Maybe f5 would work even in this position. Yeah, f5 is a good move. As for rook e d8, it's still a good move, but queen d7 with two threats to play d2 and just win the pawn on h3. At least this move works. But I think that your idea is to play f5 and even a rook e to d8. I think I'm absolutely sure that f5 is much better than queen d7. As for rook e d8, yeah, maybe two. Okay. So rook e3 was played in the game. Then, what do you think what black should do in this position after rook e3? How to play now? There is a tactical strike, I think. I believe I can call it a tactical strike. So please find something for black in this position. Okay, any suggestions? Still f5? Knight f4, yeah, it's knight f4 move. Knight f4, knight f queen d1, then at least knight h3 can be played. Then knight g5 with strong attack. That's why after knight f4 he has to take. Oh, one more thing here. If queen h4, then g5 works and the queen is trapped. So g takes, e takes. The rook is hanging. Now this rook has two squares. Rook f3 or rook e1. If rook f3, then rook g6. No, not rook e6, rook g6. Rook g6 check, then king h2, rook takes d4, and then he just has no moves because we are going to play rook e1 on the next move. We can also play bishop b7. Well, let's see he plays. No. If d2, then rook 1, then rook g1 and rook g2 and so on. He has no ideas and no defense for him in this position. If bishop f4, then we just take on f4, and if he takes, he gets a checkmate. That's why here white decided to play rook e1. How to continue in this attack? Okay, so here still rook g6. No, the question was so easy. But it's not the best move. The best move was rook e4. Rook e4, and for example, bishop takes f4. We can just take it actually. But we can also give a check on g6, and after bishop g3, take on e1, and finally play this move. Then f3, and what's the final move in this combination? Now, I can't call it a final move, but the critical move after which it's obvious that black is winning. Yeah, it's rook g5. After this move, queen has to play to h4 and then queen f3, the game is over. Queen in g2, queen h1, and plays this move, and he loses on g3. Okay, instead of rook e4 in the game, it was rook g6. And here knight g3 was played. However, another option was to play king h2. And if so, then rook e4, it's almost the same position. Here, just rook e1 is enough. And after the queen's trade, we have extra exchange and how many? Two extra pawns. So it's absolutely winning position. Moreover, it's not easy to get rid of this pin on the first rank. That's why knight g3 is the only option. Now, of course, I don't analyze king h1 move because it makes no difference between king h2 or king h1. So knight g3, we play knight e4, bishop f4, and in this position, we can even take on f4, but in this position, black decided to play better. He played bishop b7, now threatening to take on e1 and deliver a checkmate on a g2. Rook e4, queen e4. The knight is pinned, so and if, for example, white decides to take on g6, take on g6 with his queen, like this. Then we take our queen and we save the queen. King f1. Now our queen is hanging, but queen g2, king e1, check. How to play? King d2 was in the game, but what if bishop a3? How would you continue in this position? Because white is up a piece and there should be something concrete. So what's the best and what's the winning move here? Yeah, rook takes e3, rook takes e3, and after f takes e3. How to continue now? Bishop f3, exactly. Bishop f3 is the winning move. Then we are threatening to play d2. It's a checkmate. And in this position, rook e8 is the only check, but then just bishop e8. And here we win because of this passed pawn. Actually, yeah, we take, and then the knight is hanging as well. Okay, let's go back. So king d2 was played in the game, queen f2 check, king takes, then black just took on f4. He is one pawn up, but because of the king weakness, black is winning. Queen g4, rook e3, and then just queen j3 and the game finished. This is where white resigned. Of course, it's obvious that the attack is so strong and white loses here. Let's just go back to this complicated position, to the very beginning where we decided to play knight d3. So what I want you to learn, if you see that there is a certain square into the enemy territory, what means on these first four ranks, that is protected by your pawn and the file is open or semi-open, you may locate one of your pieces like Outpost if you believe that the piece standing there gives you some benefits. For example, the knight standing there attacks too many squares. Well, 8 important squares located, most of them are located into the enemy camp. And even if you play somehow get your bishop to d3, it's good. If this knight on d3 is taken, then you can transform your advantage to a passed pawn, what is also an advantage. Or you may take with your rook and then get the control over the d file. Okay, we are going to analyze one more game today. Wait a second, I'm going to load it. This is the game between Tigran Petrosyan and Herman Pilnik. In this position, it's actually black castled in this position, and then it's white to move. And what do you think about this position? Just give me any suggestions, anything, any plans that you can find in this position for white. Also, if you can share what you think the position is evaluated, it will be good too. So, in general, what can you say about this position? Of course, white has a bishop pair, but it's not easy to exploit this bishop pair advantage in a closed position. Moreover, here the topic is outposts. So, where, on which square, on which file to make an outpost. Guys, if you want to say something by voice, but you don't know how, there is a cogwheel, and it shows the settings of your microphone, your video settings. No, you actually need only microphone. Okay, Michael considers c6 to be a good square to become an outpost. Right you are, but how to locate the piece there and which piece to locate? Okay, but first we have to play b4 somehow, right? Exactly, and this is what white did on the next move actually. If c takes on b4, here just rook b1 can be played with the idea to take this pawn back and then somehow get the rook to the open file. If a5, then just rook c1. Why? Of course, b takes on a6 makes sense too, but if we make this move, then we activate his knight. But if we just play rook c1, yes, here black has extra pawn. Moreover, this is a protected passed pawn. But this knight has almost no squares to go, only e8. For example, knight e8. knight c2 e8, and then just rook c6. Occupying the square, then we are going to attack these two pawns, d6, b6, also get the other rook to the c file. There is almost no counterplay for black. After b4, black decided not to take. Yeah, exactly. After we get the rook to c6, the knight can go to c4 to attack b6 and d6. So here black decided to play h6, bishop f6, queen takes on f6, castle, rook fd8, and knight c4. So here black decided not to take, but of course the best move was to take on b4, but at the same time it didn't provide black with any advantage. White is still better, and then maybe queen b1, queen b3, anything can be played. Bishop f8, and this is where white made a mistake. He played a g3, which is, I think, a useless move in this position. Instead of the plan with the outpost, it was better just to take on c5. And then if b takes on c5, how to proceed? Knight to a5, exactly. Knight to a5, then knight goes to c6. And if d takes on c6, then queen c2, with the idea to play a5 and create a weakness on b6 or a7. For example, if queen g5 to get some activity on the king side, just rook a3, covering the third rank, and with the idea to play rook g3, maybe even to switch to the king side. But actually here the plan is to play d6 or to play a5. Of course, if we don't blunder on b5. Let's go back. So g3 was played, and this is where black decided to take on b4. Queen b3. King g7 was played by black, which is a bad move, I think. Well, maybe not a bad move, but I can definitely say that this is a mistake. a5, another option. If so, just knight b6. Rook a7, knight goes to c4 back, and we have a passed pawn, and we also have more pieces on the queen side, so we may continue the attack there. Okay, no, not queen g7. King g7 was played in the game. Okay, and then rook fc1 was played. Now I have another question for you. What's wrong with queen b4 move in this exact position? What can I say? Of course, white is still better, but this move is inaccuracy, and now black can use this inaccuracy. What do you think black can do? It doesn't change the position much, but it slightly improves black's position. How can black play? How can he use our position on b4, our queen's position there? Maybe you may notice that he can somehow threaten our queen on b4. If yes, then how? a5. I don't think it works. a5. Well, let's say a5, then just queen b3, and we are okay. Maybe b takes on a6 works as well, but then knight a5. I think it's too risky to take here. Then knight c5, he attacks 2 pawns simultaneously. Yeah, I think it was a better idea to take on a6 and activate. So, for example, after a5, you can just play queen, I don't know, c3, and it's still fine. Okay. Instead, there was knight e6 move. What's the idea? The knight wants to improve its position. It can go to d4 or c5 after that. Why not to take this knight? Because if we take it, then d5 is played. It's a double attack. He attacks the queen with his f8 bishop, and also this knight on c4. Queen b3, d takes c4. Bishop takes c4, f takes on e6, bishop e6, and then bishop c5. Here, black lost a pawn, but now I believe he improved his position because all his pieces might join the game later. Also, he attacks on f2. This is other important thing. But what is more important here, we play with bishops of opposite color. What means that if we trade the major pieces, queens and rooks, then it's likely to be a draw. That's why rook fc1 instead of playing queen b4 immediately. Then h5, knight e3. The idea of this move is to get the knight off. So we opened the c file for our rook, and we also threatening to play queen b4 the next move because there's no knight 6 option, while d5 after that would be not a double attack, just a queen's attacking move. After knight e3, it was knight e8 played in the game, then queen b4, rook d c8, and this is where white decided to play rook c6 and occupy this square. If it's possible to get the knight there, then maybe it makes sense to get the knight. But in this exact position, I believe the rook on the c file will be better because if he takes, he creates a protected passed pawn. But if he doesn't take, then we can get the other rook to the c1 square and get the control over the c file, and also attack these and these pawns. Well, as for b6 pawn, we are likely to play e5. Okay, rook c6. Which pawn to take with? What do you think? So here we can take with d pawn and b pawn. What is better? What do you think? Okay, actually both moves are playable. For example, this move gives us the d5 square for our knight. Then, for example, knight c7, knight d5, and we get a protected passed pawn. But then we have to play with bishops of opposite color. No, it's a winning position, but we may experience some problems. Better move is b takes on c6 because then we play e5, weaken his queenside pawns left, and then try to advance the c pawn. It will be much easier to promote the pawn when we have the b file that we can open by playing a5. So b takes on c6 is much better. Okay, Black decided not to take on c6. He played queen d8. Rook ac1, knight f6. And in this position, f4 should be a good move with the idea to play f5. Maybe to play f takes on e5 as well, but it opens the bishop, so I would recommend to play f5. However, here Petrosyan played bishop f1 move. Why? It's because Black ran out of good moves. And actually White can do anything he wants. Rook cb8. Or maybe knight d7 was a better move here. But then bishop h3, and he has to sacrifice the exchange, I think. Okay, rook cb8, bishop h3, a6. What do you think we should do in this position for White? What comes to your mind? How to continue? Looks like a6 weakens the b6 pawn, potentially, but he has at least two defenders for this pawn right now. The d6 is protected twice as well, but it's more important that the bishop on f8 protects this pawn. How to continue? So I think maybe knight c4 makes sense. Knight c4 with the idea to take, at least to attack. But the problem is that then we lose the pawn on e4. That's why here rook e1 first to protect after knight c4. A takes b5, a takes b5, knight to h7, knight c4. Here Black decided that he can get some activity, but it didn't really help. Bishop g2, back, queen f6 to attack on f2, then rook f1, knight g5. Strategically, White is winning. The task is just not to blunder anything. So that's why queen b3 to cover the f3 square, rook b to a8, then h4, attacking on g5, and knight has to retreat. Then rook b6. We are one pawn up. Moreover, this pawn is a passed pawn, and it's quite easy to promote it while we have our queen behind. Rook a1, rook c6, threatening to play b6 and b7. But rook 8 to a2. What's the threat behind this move? What do you think? I mean, what if, for example, here we play b6? What can happen after that? Okay, here b6 is a critical mistake. The idea of this move, rook a2, is to increase the pressure on f2. And here he can just take on f2 because our rook on f1 was pinned. So king moves, queen g2 is a checkmate. But instead of playing b6, we should just play queen e3. And now we have nothing to worry about. Queen d8, and after b6, Black resigned. Why? Because he's down a pawn and he can't do anything to stop this pawn. All of his pieces, his minor pieces, are located on the king side, and they can't stop the pawn. Well, let's make a few more moves. Maybe I'll show you what can happen. So let's say these move, knight f6. Then, for example, bishop h3 with the idea to play rook c8. He can give a check, but it doesn't work. Just king g2 is okay. Rook b1, locating the rook behind. Just rook c8, queen e7, rook c7, queen d8, and in this position, maybe something like this. And here white wins. Oh, maybe bishop e7 can be played. But then rook c8 and the queen is trapped. That's the idea. This is how black could lost in this game, but instead he just decided to resign after b6. Okay, let's go back and try to sum it up. Here, white decided that he can create an outpost on the c6 square. That's why he is okay with sacrificing the pawn on b4. Finally, white opened the c file and then get his rook to c6. If now rook takes, then b pawn takes on c6, and white has a clear winning plan. This is how he realized that he can create an outpost and later use the advantage of this outpost. Okay, do you have any questions? If not, then I suggest to finish the webinar. I also want you to suggest the topics for the webinar. You can email them to my email address, tricksofchess@gmail.com. Thank you for attention and thank you for coming. Our next webinar will be next Sunday, same time as usual.